Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 338. My name is John Morgan, coming to you from the beautiful, the wonderful, the absolutely outstanding Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Tampa, right here in Tampa, Florida. Man, this is a fantastic place to be. I'm here, of course, for CFFC 100. That's right, the historic 100th edition of Cage Fury Fighting Championships is really in just a couple hours. So wanted to get this podcast out, of course, though, because I imagine we might have a frosty beverage or two after the event to celebrate. But yeah, amazing place here. Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino here in Tampa. The very first MMA event they've ever had here. Basically, from my understanding, they just spent several $100 million in renovation and addition, basically building a new tower and adding an event center. Well, unfortunately, you kind of know what's been going on in the world, so they didn't get to unveil this event center until very recently, with things getting back under control with COVID. So this is the first MMA show that's ever been here on property, and man, the thing is sold out. The feedback has been great. I think they could have sold the place twice over. The demand for tickets was so high. So hopefully it's a place that we'll be back to. But man, if you've ever been to this property, man, it is absolutely gorgeous. So happy to be here, and happy I've got my family with me. The wife and kid made the trip as well. They're not with me right now, actually. Of course, they're actually down by the pool. But a really cool trip. I'll give you a little behind the scenes of the Morgan family. Basically, my wife and kid had a friend that moved out to Tampa, Florida during the past year. So it's a mom and a daughter that are friends of my son and my wife. And so I thought, well, you know what? We're going to Tampa. Do you want to come see them? Like, they still talk on the phone, and the kids play video games together online and stuff. I was like, so why don't you guys come out? So we're going to do that. And then we figured out, as we started looking at travel, that from Vegas, I like to fly American Airlines. They actually fly through Dallas to get to Tampa. Well, my family still is in Dallas, so what we're going to do is they're hanging out with friends now. Then tomorrow we all fly to Dallas as a family and go stop and see my mom and dad, and let the kids see his grandparents and hang out. So pretty cool little weekend. Not a big vacation by any stretch, but for a couple nights, get to hang out and see friends and family and all that. So looking forward to it. So on Saturday, I will not actually be working the UFC event. I won't be there, but Cold Coffee will. So I will still, of course, be doing the and a half episode over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. So if you're a fan of the post-fight shows, don't worry. I will be watching. I'll probably watch my mom. My mom has become quite the MMA fan. I think she basically just started watching to have something to relate to me, to talk to me about, as parents probably do with their kids. I'm sure I'll be in that boat here pretty soon in the next couple of years, where I'm just looking to figure out something my kid does so that we have something to connect on. And but through doing that, through just wanting to kind of start learning the sport a little bit, to have something to talk to me about, I guess, she's become kind of a fan. So I think I'm going to sit down and watch the fights with her on Saturday night, and then I'll throw on the headphones and we'll do a little and a half episode. So we'll definitely keep the streak going over there. We don't miss shows at the MMA Roadshow. 338 consecutive weeks, not 1 week missed. No holidays, none of that. We deliver. Rain, sleet, snow. We're like the post office. That's probably not a good example. I think the post office is going bankrupt. Anyway, I tell you what's funny. So I had grandiose plans for this week's episode. Grandiose plans. I thought, you know what? This is finally the time I'm going to be able to get Mr. CM Punk on the podcast. He's coming to Florida. We'll be there. He's been doing a lot of press lately. He's not the biggest fan of interviews, we'll be 100% honest. I don't think he necessarily loves doing media, but of course, he had the launch of his show Heels on Stars, so he was promoting that. And then, of course, the fabulous return to All Elite Wrestling. So he's been doing some interviews, so I thought, you know what? I'll be able to get him on the line. Okay? That was plan number one. Plan number two, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get Nolan King on as well. Nolan King, if you guys don't know, just had a fabulous vacation out in Hawaii, so he can enjoy that. And then on his way back, he stopped in San Jose. So he flew from Boston to Hawaii to take a vacation, and then on his way back to Boston, he stopped in San Jose this week. He's out there covering the Bellator event this weekend. And I thought, well, I'll get him on the line, and we'll talk a little Bellator as well. That was my grandiose plans. Problem number one, CM Punk is not actually here yet. Yeah. I laid out on that for a second. CM Punk is not actually here yet. Pretty crazy his schedule. So, right away when he signed with All Elite Wrestling, I'm like, so are you sticking around? Like, are you gone? Are you still part of the CFFC? He's like, no, I'm still. He's like, I love doing it. Of course I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay, cool. So you'll be at CFFC 100? Yeah, of course I'll be there. What I didn't realize though, he was working in New Jersey last night. So he was part of the AEW broadcast in New Jersey last night, and then he's flying to Florida today on the day of the event, and then he'll sit down with me. So even though we're here just a couple of hours before the event, he's still en route. So crazy schedule for him. I'm gonna knock on a little wood right here that there's no travel delays. I'm looking outside. The weather looks good. But yeah, if you tune in on UFC Fight Pass and you don't see CM Punk, you know there must have been some travel delays from Newark, New Jersey on down to Tampa, Florida. So I'm going to knock on wood once again and hope that doesn't happen. So that was part number one that was ruined. I'm still going to have CM Punk on this podcast at some point. It's inevitable. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Especially now that COVID restrictions are lifting a little bit. We didn't really spend much time together through all this COVID stuff. So anyway, I'll have him on. We'll get that done. But the other part, Nolan King, as it turns out, as I'm sitting here recording this, the media day is actually going on right now. So he's actually busy in San Jose, tied up doing the media day for Bellator, so can't get him on. But I want to do more of that moving forward. Truth is, the MMA Roadshow used to be a lot about the traveling and what was going on in the town and talking to different media people in different places. And, of course, COVID. God. COVID has ruined everything, and it's been the Las Vegas, the MMA Vegas show for so long. But as we got some people out and about, there's no reason to not bring them in. Bring in the Danny Seguras of the world, the Mike Bonds that are out there, and utilize some of that MMA junkie staff to maybe bring you some tales from the road, even on the weeks that Coke Coffee and I are pulling duty in Vegas. Because, look, man, other than the pay-per-views, I don't know when that's changing anytime soon, man. At the Contender Series the other night, really, really an international feel to that Contender Series show. And so I took the opportunity to ask Dana White, hey, when do you start going international again? I mean, when do you think? And he's just like, dude, I don't know. And he's like, it's not like things are getting better. It's not like things are improving in terms of situation. So we'll see. We'll see. I know ultimately the UFC does not want to do shows only at the Apex, even though it saves them money. I mean, you think about all the travel money that they're saving, not having to ship staff around the place. You think about not having to even pay for a venue. You think about the minimized production costs. I mean, I think overall they save money by being at the Apex. So financially, it's probably a better situation for them. But, and Dana has said it, and I think he's absolutely right. What really creates hardcore fans is that first time you go to a live event, man. When you go to a live event and you feel what it's like in person, the music pumping, the lights, the crowd, all that, that's what gets you hooked to be like, oh no, this is my sport. This is the thing I'm into now. And that's what you miss at the Apex. You miss that. And of course, you miss that big fight feel, man. There's just, I mean, it's just not quite the same. Again, I've always said, let's not complain, man. I'm happy that I have a job. I'm happy that the sport's been able to move forward, that the fighters have been able to get paid. But it does miss a little something being at the Apex, So, but anyway, I don't know how long that's going to take to get that to change. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, Cold Coffee and I are going to be covering a lot of Vegas events. So, on the weeks that that's the case, I definitely want to bring in some more of the MMA Junkie staff. So, listen, it's been a busy, busy week. Didn't do an and a half this past weekend because there was no UFC event, but even with that going on, did watch the Triller card completely as a fan. I was actually still in quarantine at the moment, so I was sitting in the room all by myself, lonesome, watching. I did have a couple frosty beverages delivered, of course, but I was watching completely as a fan. And it's funny, we talked about it going in. I always say I'm a bad judge of value because I feel like when we're talking about stuff and I'm like, here's what I'm going to be doing this weekend, I'm trying to let you guys know, is this worth your time, or here's what you should be watching. I mean, I'm hardcore, so I watch it all, so maybe it's not even value there. But I always say I'm a bad judge of whether it's worth it or not, because bottom line is I don't have to pay the $50 that it costs to watch the event, right? I mean, I got to pay it, but my bosses pay me back. The company I work for pays me back because that's part of my job, is to watch those things, to be able to talk about it and have an opinion and report on it and all those things. So, after I watched it, again, I mean, I was entertained by the Triller event. I didn't think the production was as great as it has been in the past, but, being involved in production on the low level that I am at the shows that I've done, I understand why. I mean, to put together a show on a week's notice, to move it across country and then, secure all the lighting, secure all the, just to secure the hardware you need, much less, the people, like the people that you had lined up to do it in LA before the event got moved to Florida, are they people that you would travel across the country? Like, are they your staff, or did you have like local people set up and now you got to find new local people in that new, there's just so many things going behind the scenes between moving an event cross country. So when the production wasn't as great as I thought it would be, I kind of was like, well, let's cut him a little bit of slack here. I get why it's going on. So I didn't hold him too much for that. And then again, I'm a guy that was not allowed to leave my house because of COVID-19. I was in quarantine. I couldn't even talk to my own damn family. So maybe my bar for entertainment value was pretty low at that point. But I was mildly entertained. But again, I didn't have to pay the $50. So when that thing was over, I was able to turn it off and just be like, I didn't have to turn it off and think, I just spent $50 of my hard-earned money on that. So, overall, I walked away mildly entertained. I didn't flip over to the alternate feed broadcast, so I don't know how much, the Trump thing added to it. I didn't flip over. I just watched the main commentary. As far as Holyfield Belfort, listen, we said going in, we all had concerns for it, right? I mean, I was surprised the number of boxing media that were like, yeah, Holyfield's got this. I was like, what? It kind of made me to start like second guess myself a little bit. Like, what am I missing here? What am I seeing wrong? Like, what do these boxing people know that I don't? And to be fair, it's not like I've spent time covering Holyfield's career in the time since he's fought. So, I just saw a guy that looked like he was in pretty good shape that takes care of himself. So I wasn't completely discounting him, but I thought it was a complete mismatch in Vitor's favor, and obviously it turned out to be that way. But it kind of made me wonder if like the boxing media in these matchups just has some inherent like homerism to them without even maybe really knowing it. Like, oh, we're the superior striking art. These MMA people coming into our beautiful sport, the sweet science. What do they know? I kind of wonder if there's some of that and they just don't even realize that they're doing it, because I'm like, this is a 58-year-old Evander Holyfield. Like, what? And as I did say, I thought that open workout footage didn't necessarily tell the whole story, and I think it kind of did. I think it kind of did. Look, when Holyfield fell down throwing a punch, that was all the confirmation I needed right there. I'm like, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good at all. And I think because of that, I didn't have much issue with the stoppage. I saw, Evander kind of protesting it a little bit at first, and then I've seen subsequently he protested a little bit more that he thought the stoppage wasn't there. I got to be honest with you, I had no problem with the stoppage. I think the referee just kept that from being even more of a disaster. And maybe that's not exactly his job, but yeah, fighter safety is his job. And I think, when he sees a guy tagged a little bit, when he sees a guy stumble and fall down, that's a guy that doesn't need to be in there, right? And what do you need to do? Just let the guy get knocked cold and have some, you don't need to. You saw what you needed to see. Is anybody that watched that fight thinking, man, I got robbed. I don't know how that thing was going to play out. This referee stopped the damn thing early. Nah. So I didn't hate the stoppage. I will say I didn't necessarily love how much Vitor celebrated it afterwards. And I'm kind of torn on this because, listen, I like Vitor. Anybody that knows the history between me and Vitor, obviously we had a moment. But he was a good friend before, and he's been a good friend after. And every interaction with him I've ever had with him, other than the one night in Brazil, has been nothing but positive. So I like Vitor a lot. So I'm not trying to pick on him here. And the thing is, man, I know it had been a while since he was in action, and I know that he'd been wanting to have this fight with De La Hoya, and then it gets changed to Holyfield, and it gets moved, and all these things changed, and he was willing to roll with it and go with it and put it on the line. And so I'm not saying the guy doesn't deserve to celebrate and doesn't deserve to live up the moment, this athletic accomplishment. But like, what did you really accomplish? You know what I mean? Like, what did you really? And again, I'm torn on this because yes, you went in there and risked it and got into a professional boxing match and you won, so you get to celebrate. But I don't know, it just felt like a world title win. When in reality, it was like, I've heard people say, since then that, Vitor should have carried the fight a little bit more, maybe, and We'll hear more about that in a little bit. I'll get to some of that later, and you'll see why. I don't agree with that. I think it's okay for you to just go, when you see it's a mismatch, to just go finish the fight. Because if you don't, and something silly happens, and next thing you know, like you get caught with a punch because you were, carrying the guy, so to speak. I don't, you can't risk that. So, but I don't know. I thought maybe the celebration could have been toned down just a little bit, considering you just beat a 58-year-old man. But it is a 58-year-old boxing legend. It's not like an old drunk guy at the bar that you just punched. Not that anybody would. Anyway, I didn't take any personal pleasure, by the way, in the Tito. I know a lot of people took real personal pleasure and pride, I guess, in Tito Ortiz getting knocked cold. I didn't. I know Tito's a controversial guy, but it's not like I ever said, yeah, you got what you deserve there. No, I didn't think that. But what I did see was just, man, the skill difference was just so painfully clear in that, man. The punches that he were throwing. Oh, man, it just was not good. But it's what you expected, right? I mean, when did we ever see... I just never understood this fight from the beginning. Like, I understood Vitor De La Hoya. I kind of understood Holyfield when De La Hoya couldn't happen. Didn't think it was necessarily the greatest idea, but, Evander is an all-time great. He had been preparing for a fight. It wasn't like they just plucked him off the streets. I got it. But this one I never really understood. Like, what did you think Tito Ortiz was going to do? If it was like some kind of mixed rules fight where it's like, it's a boxing match, but Tito can take you down. Like, he can't kick you, he can't submit you, but ground and pound is legal. Now, I know that's weird, but, okay. Now we got to fight. Now we got something that could happen, right? But did anybody think in any way Tito was going to go in there and outbox Anderson Silva at all? Like, no. Now, did I think he was going to get knocked out in the first round? Absolutely did not. But damn, Anderson clipped him, man. And, yeah, Anderson looks good, man. I think there's more demand for Anderson Silva. I want to see Anderson Silva continue to box. I know he's not going to fight for a world championship, but, you find matchups that are intriguing, and I'm in for him. I'm in for Anderson Silva, so that's good. Now, this whole thing about these things being exhibitions, man, and that's not even knowing whether it was an exhibition. Crazy. Non-competitive fights, like I said, if I had to pay $50, and it was $50 of my personal hard-earned money, I might have not been as positive about it as I am. But I was a dude sitting in quarantine that didn't have to pay for it, so I was all right with it. And there were no other fights going on. That's the other thing. If it was up against something that I had to miss, or had my attention split, I probably would have been a little bit less. I don't want to say glowing, just wouldn't like it quite as much. So, I didn't hate it. Now, Dan Rayfield came out and reported that it only did around 150,000 buys, and you've seen some Triller execs depart the company, and you've also seen some Triller execs saying we're going in a different direction moving forward. We're going to do things differently. Let me say this right up front, and I don't think I'm taking a shot at the Triller people when I say this. I don't think they're making any kind of a moral decision here in terms of their decision to go in a different direction with the company. I don't think they heard the moral outcries of everybody going, what the hell were you doing with a 58-year-old man in there? You could have gotten him killed, and they're like, yeah, you're right. What were we thinking? We let the moment get to us. No, it didn't perform well financially. That's why they're changing it. So we'll see where they go from here. It is going to be crazy, though, right? Like, because they did another show on Tuesday night, which I didn't even know about. Did you guys know that they did another event on Tuesday? I didn't. All of a sudden, this is literally what happened. On Monday, I got a press release in my inbox that was talking about weigh-in results. And I saw who it was from, and it's from the PR rep for Triller. And I thought, man, did this thing get stuck in his email outbox and he's accidentally just sending it? Because it's like Triller Fight Club weigh-in results. And I'm like, and this is a good dude, man. But I thought maybe so he had some email issue. Why is this going out? And I open it up, and I'm like, oh, no, this is for another card on Tuesday. It was just more like a traditional boxing event. I don't know. Are they going to be able to carve out a space, in the normal boxing world? Now, at that point, we don't cover it anymore. The only reason we get a lot of grief at MMA Junkie for covering these boxing events. They're like, it's MMA. You're only supposed to be. We're covering MMA because it's got, I mean, we're covering boxing because it's got MMA people in it. Like, clearly you see that, right? So if it's just a regular boxing event, I mean, we're not going to be covering Triller Fight Club. But I'm just kind of interested, like, can they be a viable business model if they don't have the freak show aspect of it, I don't know. We'll see. So that was my Saturday night. And, of course, Tuesday night was a Contender Series. A lot of decisions, but a lot of really good fights in there. Talent coming into the UFC. Another 5 contracts awarded out of 6 fights. So we've now had just one fighter win and not get a contract. And that was Moe Miller. Felt kind of bad for Moe Miller. Moe's undefeated. I thought put on a pretty good performance. Didn't get the finish. Just 6-0, so maybe it's a little early in his career. There's nothing wrong with getting a few more fights under your belt, but he trains with Stipe, and Stipe put in the call to Dana to try to get him signed. So and the fact that they're basically signing everybody now, it did kind of surprise me a little bit that they didn't take Moe Miller. I mean, that's literally the only winner so far in 3 events that hasn't gotten a contract. So unfortunate for him, but maybe he'll get some more seasoning. Heck, we were talking about him the other night out here in Tampa, saying maybe we can get him on a CFFC card. I thought the kid was talented. I thought he showed something. So we'll see what's next for him. But otherwise, some really, really good prospects on there. And you know what, man? It's been kind of a point of discussion lately. We talked about it on Spinning Back Click, actually, about people saying they're kind of enjoying the show less because it seems like everybody that gets signed or everybody that wins gets signed. And I was surprised, actually. The panel of Spinning Back Click all kind of agreed, like, yeah, it's just not the same for me. I need a little bit more tension, a little bit more stakes. I don't know. And I'm not taking a shot at those guys because obviously that's their opinion. I don't know. I don't see it. Like, it doesn't make it less enjoyable for me. Like, if the concept of the show is we have 5 fights, and if you win, you're in the UFC. I don't hate that. I mean, that's real tension. That's real stakes, right? That's people. I mean, hell, I don't know that it would make anybody fight any differently than they fight now. Maybe they'd fight more conservatively if they know, hey, I can really just eke this out on the cards and I can still get in. Maybe that would be it. If you win by stoppage, you automatically get in. If you win by decision, Dana gets to make a decision, or they flip a coin. No, that'd be kind of rude. They just flip a coin to decide your fate. That probably wouldn't be it. But it wouldn't change, I don't think, my enjoyment of the fights to say everybody that wins gets in. You know what I mean? Again, unless it turns out that people were just laying and praying, and then I'd be like, yeah, this show sucks. But if we were still getting the same fights, I don't know. So I was a little bit surprised to hear that a lot of people are frustrated that there's been so many contracts awarded. I don't know. I don't get it. Look, they need bodies right now. That's just the reality of the situation. With COVID-19, late replacements are a constant necessity because people test positive, or these issues pop up, or whatever the case may be. So they need bodies right now. I mean, there's a big portion of the roster that can't even get into the United States right now, so they can't fight. So I don't know. It just hasn't bothered me like it's bothered some. I'd be interested to hear if it bothers you guys or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but to me, it's still good. I was happy to see Jasmine Jasudavicius get her contract. Of course, she is a former CFFC vet, and anytime I get to watch somebody fight here in CFFC and I get to comment on their fights, I don't know. I feel like I'm more invested in their career. Like I remember calling their fights. It's cool. I like to see them. So I was happy to hear her get in. By the way, Jasudavicius is the proper pronunciation of her last name, so they were saying it right on there. I just basically said from the beginning that I'm going to call her Jasudavicius because I think it sounds bad. I mean, if you're a fighter, I was kind of hoping she'd stick with it, but maybe I guess she didn't like it as much as I liked it. I was kind of hoping when she got to the big stage, she'd be like, hey, let's just go with Jasudavicius. And then once you retire, you get done, then you say, wow, it's not the real way you say my last name. It's Jasudavicius. But I just went with Jasudavicius during my fighting career. So I think that's the only time in history I've made a purposeful decision to call somebody, to pronounce somebody's name incorrectly just because I thought it was cooler. So maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have taken that liberty on my own during her CFFC career. But either way, I was happy to see her get in. She's a scrapper. And you know what else I was happy to see? Justin Bernard, man. Justin Bernard in there as a ring announcer was so cool. For anybody that doesn't know, he's done chill up there. Probably there's a lot of people that don't know. He has done in-cage announcing for Tough Enough, the amateur organization in Las Vegas, for years and years and years. And I've always thought he was fantastic at it. I've been happy to be a part of that organization. They haven't been, unfortunately, able to host shows in a long time, but hopefully they get started again soon. But I've called their shows for a long, long time. Gorgeous George and Goes have called a couple of their shows. Dave Farah was somebody that I worked with a lot. Jason Mahoney, those two radio hosts, they're great guys, man. I've worked with them. So we've kind of had this rotating cast and crew of people, but we've been it's been a part of the Junkie family, it's been a part of the Morgan family, that's for sure. But Justin Bernard, I always thought did a phenomenal job, and he got the call, and I thought it was so cool. And I don't know how much of the story he wants to be made public, but my understanding is, I don't think there's anything bad with this, that he reached out and was like, hey, if you need my help, I'd love to be a part. And they were like, you know what? They saw some of his clips and said, come in and give us a read. And they were like, you know what? We like your work. So, I mean, here's a dude that has put in a lot of time, commitment, professionalism, and saw an opportunity and took it, and went for it, man. And how can you not be happy for that? He saw a need, and there was a need. And I don't want, and Laura Sanko obviously has deserved all the praise that she has received over recent times for her role since she started doing broadcasting this season, right? She deserves it. She's a badass. I mean, everybody knows that. She knows her stuff, man, and she puts in the work. She knows the sport. She's great at it. But what they were asking her to do was nuts. And I tweeted about it the first week about how cool I thought it was, and it was cool. But I guess maybe what I didn't want to say is, like, she looks like she's running around here with a chicken with her head cut off. And I think Danny even alluded to that first night where he's like, now it was crazy. She's in a second floor production booth because they don't do the announcing cage side in Contender Series. They do it in a production booth, and I think that's because they don't want it to. They want it to feel different, right? They don't want it to have that announcer sound. They want it to feel like a little bit different, like it's not a UFC event, right? But that makes what she was trying to do damn near impossible. So, second floor production booth, she calls the fights. Then she runs down hallways, downstairs, across the floor, gets the card from the if it's a decision, we'll say, gets the card. Then she's got to figure out which order she's going to read them in and how she. Okay, got it. But she's literally on a full sprint to get there. Gets in the cage, reads that out, and then as the team is celebrating, then she's got to run out of the cage and run over to the area where she does her little interviews. Okay, so I mean, listen, she's in good enough athletic shape to do it. It's not like, she's got to run 200. I'm not saying that. But it's the fact that she's having to go from one duty to another duty to another duty, where normally you'd have a second to collect yourself and to get prepared and get mentally ready and all that. And she can't because she's just nonstop. It's insane. So, and as Dana White alluded to the other night, I think the in-cage ring announcing, she's always kind of admitted was her least favorite thing to do. Like, it wasn't her favorite part. For whatever reason, she's super comfortable in front of a camera. She's super comfortable talking about fights. She's super comfortable doing interviews. But I think she just was never comfortable being that reading of the decisions for whatever reason. So they brought in Justin Bernard to do it, and I thought he killed it, man. I thought he did a great job. I'm biased, I'll readily admit. So if you hated his performance, I get it. But I've liked the guy for a long time and had a chance to work with him, and I was super happy to see him get the opportunity. And so hopefully that keeps up, man. I will say this: there was one mistake on that. The early submission, referee Mark Smith, who, trust me, I've known Mark for a long time. I can tell you without question, he is beating himself up over it currently as we speak, and has been doing it since he did it on Tuesday night. I guarantee you, this dude is an absolute just perfectionist and committed to professionalism, and I'm sure he would have been pissed off. But he stopped that fight a little bit early with Lucas Bresky and Dylan Potter, and the tap just didn't come. And I haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. I don't know if he thought, because the arm came up in defense to try to peel away the hands, and I don't know if he thought that was a tap, or if you notice at that same time, the body weight kind of shifted forward, and I don't know if he thought that was Dylan Potter going limp by going out from it, but bottom line is there was no tap, and he was conscious. So it was an unfortunate ending, and Mark made a mistake there, and again, as I said, I know him. He'll be beating himself up over it. It didn't bother me much, to be honest with you, because I think one of two things was going to happen. Either A, he was going to be tapping out from that choke. It was locked in pretty tight. Or he was 69 seconds away from losing the fight via decision, which I know that's, to assume that's the thing we love about MMA, right? Is anything can happen in a fight. To assume that we know what was going to happen in that final 69 seconds is probably not the right thing to do. But at that point, I had already seen 13 minutes and 51 seconds of this fight, and I saw the position that they were in, so I feel pretty confident in saying I know how the fight was going to end if it didn't end via that choke and a tap out a few seconds later. So anyway, I don't want to sweat too much on that. It was a mistake. There's no question about it, but it was one that I didn't really have a whole lot of problems with. So yeah. Then we headed out to Tampa the next morning. 5 a.m. Was our flight, so we left the house at 3:30 a.m. Me and the wife and the kid. So I didn't actually sleep on Tuesday night. Got here yesterday. I was supposed to. I owe big time apologies to TJ DeSantis, man. TJ DeSantis was going to have me on the Extra Rounds podcast that he does to help talk CFFC 100, and I slept through. I'm just gonna be honest. I slept through the interview time. I laid down to take a nap because I didn't sleep the night before. Once we got here, we got settled in, we got unpacked, we got everything. I was like, I'm just gonna take a quick little nap, and yeah, I slept too long. My wife and kid were hanging out with their friends, and it was kind of quiet in the room, and yeah. I fell asleep. So TJ, my apologies. He says we'll do something next week in Vegas. He's actually going to be in town, and I was like, dude, you just tell me the time, and we can do it, man. I certainly apologize. All right, so that's been my week, kind of leading up to it. CFFC 100 tonight. In the meantime, Cold Coffee still pulling the work back in Las Vegas. So shout out to Cold Coffee for still holding down the fort in Las Vegas, covering UFC Fight Night 192. Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann in the main event. Wanted to give that a little bit of love. Media day, of course, was yesterday. I was not there, but I did take some time to watch the videos and to just kind of see what was happening there. And I wanted to share a little bit first of Ryan Spann, headliner Ryan Spann, of course, out of Fortis MMA. I got love for Fortis MMA, but I will say I did pick Anthony Smith in this fight. But I'll tell you, I'm gonna let you listen to this. I'm kind of second guessing myself a little bit, but Ryan Spann walked in with a Rubik's Cube in hand. So when you wonder why the first question is about a Rubik's Cube, that is why he walked in with a Rubik's Cube in his hand, which is not something we're used to seeing at media day. I will say I am starting this clip from the beginning of the media session, which Amy Kaplan taking everything I worked for, starting out in my lead spot. I mean, listen, I'm not there, so no offense taken, but Amy Kaplan taking everything I'm working for. You'll hear a little bit of Oscar Willis in there as well, of course. Hot T holding it down as he does, and then it's a visual thing, but I had to leave it in here. Cold Coffee is a trendsetter. It's a visual thing, but I'm gonna leave it in here because I thought it was kind of a funny little interaction between our man Cold Coffee and Ryan Spann. But here it is. Here's how it played out.
I got to ask about the Rubik's Cube first. I saw you playing with that. What's the deal with that?
This is, I guess, my way of staying in moments and stuff, and like I figured out how to do it and whatnot. So I like to do it. I'm trying to get my time down. Right now I'm at a little shy of 2 minutes, so trying to get it down.
So is there a secret to it that you can share, how to solve it quickly?
Basically, once you figure out the algorithm and you just get faster at making the movements, it's kind of it's not necessarily complex once you're learning it, though. Once you're learning it, it's kind of complex. Once you learn it, it's not. And it just kind of keeps my brain active and I like to do it in between sets when I'm working out or something like that. Try to figure out if I can do it while I'm tired or like when I'm taking ice baths or things of that nature, just to keep my brain sharp while I'm doing other things too.
That's pretty cool. So this is your first UFC main event. Does it feel different coming into this fight week?
I honestly don't think it feels different because of it being a main event and all of that. Like, I'm used to big fights and used to things of this nature. I think it feels different because I feel different as a person. Like I'm happier. Like I feel better. We took care of my body. I brought in a nutritionist, so like I feel good. And like to me, it feels different because of that, not because of the magnitude of the fight.
So you mentioned that you feel happier, which is kind of funny because one of my questions was about Anthony saying that you seemed angry. So can you kind of speak on that? Why do you think he thinks that?
I think maybe the tone that came off, because it wasn't the fact that I'm angry when I said what I said. I'm not angry. I'm very, very happy. I have a lot of respect for him. I'm happy. I'm in a good place. Like, I've seen where this takes my family. Like, I've had a glimpse of it, like being able to take my wife on a trip, being able to do things like taking my wife on a vacation, taking my brother, like we went to Vegas, and I like being able to get a suite and the things that we've been able to do, actually hanging out with my family, being in moments and stuff. I'm much, much happier now seeing where this, like, because for the longest you hear, oh, you can do this or you can do that. But for the longest, when you're fighting for free, hearing that you can be champion of the world, you're looking down a dark tunnel. And now I've gotten to the point to where I can see glimpses of the light. And now it just makes me stronger. It makes me freer. And I'm happy because I'm actually seeing fruits of my labor now.
So what do you think of this matchup? What was your first thought when it was proposed to you?
Well, technically, it wasn't proposed to me. I called for it after I fought Misha because I didn't call for him per se. I called for the spot. So whatever he thinks I have against him, I don't. That's why I said whoever shows up. After the Misha fight, I was like, only fight I knew about that makes sense for me was Smith and Crute. They were fighting each other. I was already lined up to fight Crute before, like a couple years ago, and I broke my hand. And so I was like, why not? I've taken it before, so and Smith was already ranked number 6, and I've seen him giving people opportunities, which that's why I say I'm not angry at him. I have respect for him because this is an opportunity for me. He didn't have to give me. He didn't have to look back, because I can't guarantee you I'm going to look back when I get there. So I appreciate that he's actually doing this. And I understand it's a business, and he'll get paid, like he said, no matter what. He's getting paid whatever he's getting paid to fight whoever he's going to fight. So it could either be back or forward. He's still going to. So I appreciate the fact that he did, take it. Like, I appreciate that. So I didn't necessarily call for the fight. I called for the spot, and he took it.
What do you think a win over Anthony will do for your career?
A win over Anthony, it kind of puts me in a position where, like I said, everything I've been fighting for, because in order to get the financial stability that I strive for my family, I have to beat them and I have to keep going because I have to get the belt. That's how you make the most money in this sport, is champion. Unless you some mega superstar, but most mega superstars have fought for the title or had the title. So either way it go, I got to get there and I got to win.
Thank you.
Hey, man. You see this stuff about Anthony feeling slightly disrespected or feeling that you don't have respect for him. Do you think that's just the UFC promotional machine in work, and actually like words get misconstrued and you can lose?
I honestly don't know where it came from. For whatever reason, he feel that way, in which, I can't do anything about it. The thing is, when that came out, no one reached out to me to see if I was angry, which it really wouldn't matter because I don't do many interviews anyway. And I think the only one I did now is Gavin, and that's about the only person that I'll talk to, and I think probably you if you called. And so I don't necessarily know where it came from. No one talked to me about it before anyone went off saying, like, I think I tweeted, because DC said it that night, because I was just so happened to be watching and it came up and I was like, oh shit, that looked like me. Oh wait, that's me. Weirdest thing, man. So, because me and my wife was sitting there watching it and I was like, oh snap, all right, cool, that's what we did. And DC was like, man, Spann seems angry. And it's not that I'm angry, man. I'm fighting for something. Like, I can't let anyone take it. It doesn't matter who shows up, who it is. I can't let anyone take it. Like, it's not anger. I'm not angry. Like, now I feel like I'm in a therapy session. You're angry. I'm not angry. Woosah. But
count to 10. Deep
breaths. Let me get my balloon. But I don't know where it came from. But it doesn't matter because it won't change anything. The result's still going to be the same.
What do you think about him as a fighter? Like, in terms of his skills compared to yours? That old question.
Honestly, okay, so I have to always explain this, which is I don't watch film. So I didn't get to see much, you know. Uriah watched a lot of them before when they were both middleweights and stuff. So I was able to get some tidbits from people here and there. But other than that, I don't watch it myself, and I don't care to watch it. So I do respect the fact that he's been where he's been for as long as he have, because he has skills. He has to have skills to be able to maintain, to be at the upper echelon of when did he fight John? Who knows? A couple of years ago, 2, 3, whatever. Either way, 2? Yeah. So for him to still be here in the top, I don't think he've ever dropped below 10, maybe. And that I don't know for sure. I just think for him to be where he is, he haven't dropped far. So for him to be where he is, he has to have skills, and I have to respect that.
This is not a sport that lends itself to longevity, right?
Right.
So cool. Thanks, man.
I guess when you go in, I think a lot of people look at Anthony and think like, all right, well, he's either great on the ground or maybe he's going to try to test his hands out. When you were preparing for this, were you guys preparing for a guy that's going to try to either get you down on the ground and try to do jiu-jitsu, or do you think he wants to try to stand and bang with you and to test his hands?
I'm going to hold the mic how you hold it.
Yeah.
I've never
it's like a
seen
cigar
that.
or a fine sifter.
I've never seen that. All right. I honestly don't know what he's going to try to do, and I really don't care because it's not going to work. Right? The plan, if it goes according to how I've been seeing it, it doesn't matter what he do. It's not going to work.
And when you think about the Ryan Spann now that's headlining the card, what's the difference of the Ryan Spann that's headlining this card and the Ryan Spann that headlined that LFA card years ago?
It's night and day, man. I honestly, then, like we was talking about it, getting ready for this fight. Like, I don't know how you do that, man. Like, it's just...
I know. Now I feel all weird. Now I'm my face. I'm gonna just casually went like this. Now you're making me second guess my life.
Like, what did I do in life to become here? Honestly, it's a difference, man. Like I was talking to my nutritionist Eric Pena, and I was talking to my strength and conditioning coach Mike Scacia. He changed it. And you know what? Fuck it. No, I'm going back. We're in here now. So I talked to, my coaches and we basically discovered the fact that I've been coming off the couch, basically doing this, like barely training, doing what I have to do just to get by, just to get to the fight. See, now, like I've been posting, we've left no stone unturned. I brought in Eric Pena. I've been working with Mike Scacia, and it's showing like my body, like I feel good. I'm happy. I've been working on my mental game. And talking to a therapist, like I'm telling you, man, it's completely different. Like it seems like, okay, June, it seemed like all of a sudden I became a different person. Like I have memories of that. Like I can watch me on TV and I'll be sitting and like, man, they don't really seem like me. Like the memories of that stuff is more to me like memories of someone else being told to me, not like I was actually there. And I feel so much different now.
And you kind of touched on it, and I wondered, how much of it is your growth? So it is, would you say the majority of the growth is the mentality, the mental side? Because when I look at these fights, both you're going to come in physically prepared. Do you think it's going to come down to a battle of wills? Who's going to be willing to go further and push harder? That's going to get the victory at the end of the day? That
is a very real possibility. That could be it. We will see, but, it's hard to, I'm not saying he's full or or he's not driven. Like somebody just told me, he had 3 kids and like I do and all that. So we're essentially fighting for the same thing, but at the same time, he's already been where I'm trying to get to, and it's things like that where it's like, I'm hungry. That it's not anger that you hear. I dropped a lot of tears just talking about where me and my family then came from. I posted a picture where 2014 when I got married, me and my wife had like cheap busted up rings. It ain't not busted up, but I couldn't afford decent rings to even get married. Like now I was able to go and get her the ring she wanted. Like I was able to get me one. Like it just, things are changing, and I have to beat this dude. I have to walk through him to get to where I'm trying to go, to continue to see these differences. And that's why I worked so hard like I did. I got a therapist, got a nutritionist. I'm with my strength coach. Like I'm having to do what I had to do, what I should have been done. But now I know, like I'm too close now to even risk just trying to show up like I have been. Like most of my camps have been just cutting weight, to be real with you. Like it's just been cutting weight. We've trained and we train hard and all of that, but most of the time it's, what's your weight? Where your weight at? What's your weight? Get your weight down. What's your weight? Like not, this is what we're going to do, which there is that, because, the general, Saif Saud, he makes sure to have that on point. But at the same time, for me, my focus has been weight, not how to perform. And like the therapist said, the key to peak performance is total engagement in your task. And now I've gotten to the point to where I can be totally engaged. Like I've noticed like my memories and things like would slip, or I would forget things quickly or not remember things from the past. But at the same time is I wasn't really there. Like I wasn't really there. And now I can be there. That's why you see the Rubik's Cube. Like when I get tired or whatever, I have to focus on what I'm doing. I can't think in the past, or I can't think in the future with anxiety or depression, because I have to focus on whatever I'm doing right now. And that's where we've been.
Good stuff I thought there from Ryan Spann. Honestly, I think one of the better interviews I've ever heard him do. And maybe it's, I don't know, sometimes I think I listen to answers and interviews differently when I'm thinking about like what I'm going to write or that sort of thing. So maybe I'm just hearing it different. But to me, I feel like that was one of the most open, honest, insightful Ryan Spanns we've ever seen. So I thought that was cool. We'll see. He talked about, feeling comfortable in the first main event. We'll see. Do jitters get to you a little bit? I mean, on the day of, okay, main event. But then when it's there, you know what I mean? And the whole event's building up to you, and you've seen a week worth of, preview videos of everybody talking about you, and that moment comes. I mean, do you still get a little bit of the jitters? I don't know. We'll see. I think that does factor in a little bit. I think people think in their first main event that it's just the same. It's just a fight, same cage, same octagon, blah, 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 all those things. Of course, not even mentioning the fact 5 rounds. I mean, that's a big part of it too. But I'm just talking about the feel of everything. I think it does kind of get to people sometimes, on fight night. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm sure you could tell why I wanted to hear some of the clips of him talking about hanging out with his family. I can totally relate. You know what I mean? Like, it feels good to have your family with you. When you go on these, quote unquote business trips or whatever to go do these things. It's cool when you're able to bring your family along. You know what I mean? You're able to let them see the nice hotel. I mean, I don't get to go enjoy the pool. You know what I mean? But they do. It's fun. I mean, we all like to let our family do fun things and to be able to provide for them, right? So I thought that was pretty cool, man. I could totally relate. Now, let's talk about this anger narrative, right? Because I've seen this a lot lately, and maybe I'm crazy when I see it. Maybe, I don't know, you can tell me if I'm crazy, but, when you get guys like DC, guys like Chael, kind of setting these narratives and talking about the stories and laying out the narratives of things, it's they're good at it. They're damn good at it, and that's why they do it. Obviously, they're both fans of professional wrestling. They're both fans of the theater of combat sports, and they're good at setting these narratives. Sometimes, though, I think they take some liberties in the things that they say, and they're not always 100% accurate. Now, does that make it wrong? No. I mean, they're part of the production of this whole thing, right? They're part of the whole storytelling, the whole... People like conflict. I mean, fights are great, and they are. I mean, a mixed martial arts fight is phenomenal just as a mixed martial arts fight. But, when there is bad blood or when there is a little something extra, I do the same thing with CFFC. Obviously we don't have as many, like, personal beefs and things like that on the regional level, but, you lay out what's at stake here. What does this mean? What would this do? That's good. But sometimes I think they take a little liberty with the narratives and set things that aren't exactly true. And then the fighters, I guess, they kind of have to choose if they're going to play along with it or not. So, yeah, interesting, because that's been this whole thing, right, about an angry Ryan Spann. And it's like I'm not angry, So, I don't know. Just thought that was kind of funny to see. All right. Hopefully you like the cold coffee a little bit there as well. So it's a video gag, and I'm gonna have Cold Coffee put it up on because I'm not gonna have time to do it. I gotta go to the show in a little bit. Patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. I'll have him put it up over there. But the visual is basically like, I think what it reminded me of, and I wish I could have seen Cold Coffee doing this. I don't understand why he grabbed the microphone, because you've seen we've talked about the setups, right, during pandemic era MMA, right? We're all sitting at these tables. We're 6 feet apart from each other, but we have microphones individually run to each table. So there's just a mic like right there next to us, laying next to us, and we pick it up when we want to talk. Now, I can't see Cold Coffee because the camera is, Cold Coffee's camera is pointing at Ryan Spann, but basically the way he holds it reminded me of like old-time boxing, Madison Square Garden, the microphone is lowered down into the ring, and the announcer grabs it and holds it down that way, and introducing from the red corner. That's what it reminded me of. So I have no idea why Cold Coffee held the microphone that way, but for Ryan Spann to call him out on it and then say, "Nah, I'm in this, man." That was pretty funny. I'm out. You got to see the video of it. I'm gonna have him put it up on the Patreon page. But yeah, it was good. So anyway, ultimately though, this Ryan Spann interview, man, I think one thing that's always intrigued me about MMA from the very beginning when I became a fan, and that's still to this day, is the psychological aspect of it, man. The psychological aspect. I mean, this sport is so technical on the feet. It's so technical on the ground, and there's so many things to learn, and offenses and defenses and tactics and all these things. But so much of it comes down to psychology, man. It's such a psychological game. I think that's one of the things that's always been an appeal to me about this sport, is how people get over that hump. You know what I mean? Like, dude, there's still fear, man. There's still fear. There's still nerves. There's still every single time, man. You go in there, it's. I hate to use it. I always try to keep my language clean, so I'm a little not safe for work warning here. It's a mind fuck. It really is. It really is. This whole sport is a mind fuck, and the people that can learn to deal with it have a huge edge. And so to hear Ryan Spann talk about that, man, I just always appreciate people's openness and discussion of what it takes to be there. So, listen, man, I don't know, it spoke to me a little bit. The whole thing spoke to me, that the way he ended it with just the here and the now, and man, I mean, it was like inspiring for me for my broadcast tonight. You know what I mean? I'm thinking about hey man, because we're flying to Dallas tomorrow, and I'm thinking about things I got to do with my mom and things I got to do with my dad, and where we're gonna go and what the schedule's gonna be like, so that my kid gets the most time. I got to put that aside. You know what I mean? Then I'm already looking at the week next week. I'm already looking at my calendar and looking at everything, because it's gonna be another busy week. We got Contender Series again. We've got a UFC pay-per-view. We got International Fight Week. So there's gonna be some additional things to cover. And I'm thinking about all that. How are we gonna fit this in? What are we gonna do? Tonight when I'm on the mic, I got to put everything aside. I got to be here. I got to be now. I got to be confident in what I'm doing. I got to be. I don't know. I found it inspirational. It spoke to me. Be here. Be present. Be now. Focus on that and that alone. Don't let any of that other noise seep in. And I don't know, it spoke to me. So this is why I said going in, I picked Anthony Smith in this fight because I thought just the veteran savvy. I mean, Spann has tools, no question about it, but I feel like he's still raw and developing. And Anthony Smith, I think, has that, of course, veteran savvy. I think Anthony Smith is kind of on the tail end of things, and I'm not trying to say he needs to hang it up anytime soon, but I do feel like he's starting the descent a little bit. And again, I mean that is no insult, but I felt that he was higher up right now than Ryan Spann. But when I hear that Ryan Spann, and when he says, I've just been up to this point, Camp's just been cutting weight. Now we're actually game planning and technique doing this. And man, if there's anybody that can game plan, it's Saif Saud. I mean, I love that guy, man. You talk about an expert in the game. So I don't know, man. I'm intrigued. Yeah. Hey, listen, I should say, by the way, if you like what you're listening to, do us a 7. Take a second. If you've never rated us, reviewed us, I know it takes a little bit of time. I know it's a little bit annoying, but if you could do it, it helps. It helps, you know what they say. It helps you get the show noticed, and it does. We're always trying to grow the thing, get more people listening. So if the algorithm helps us based on your feedback, I certainly appreciate it. Of course, I always like to read comments, positive. Constructive criticism is welcome as well, but positive is good. I like positive reinforcement. So if you can take the time to do that, and listen, as I always say, if you want to take a game to the next level and really support the podcast, head over to patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. You can sign up for as little as $3 a month. There's annual options as well that'll save you a percentage off that. But it basically just helps us to support the show, and we really do appreciate each and every person who is either currently subscribing or has done it in the past. More the people that are currently surprised. But anybody that's ever helped the show, we certainly do appreciate it. Now, at the media day back in Las Vegas, Anthony Smith came a little bit afterwards, right? And I like this because he gets to address some things as well. But this is where we're going to get back to the Triller stuff as well. So we're going to hear from Anthony Smith, who was phenomenal, man. I mean, he's just always such a great interview. He just has been from the day. I've always been a big Anthony Smith fan. I've told this story before, but I love mentioning it to maybe anybody that hasn't heard it. If you've heard this, if you listen to the podcast for a long time, you'll have heard this before. But I mean, the first time I ever met Anthony Smith, he came up to me in an airport bar and was like, "Dude, you're going to be covering me one day," and I just enjoyed talking to him. We had a beer together and talked for a little bit, and I was like, "Man, this is a great guy," but I didn't know who he was. This is 10 years ago. But obviously, I wrote his name down or whatever, and when he left, I pulled up his record to see who is this prospect that's going to make to the UFC, and he was like 4-8 at the time. I was like, what? He was on a 4-fight losing streak. He's like, you're going to be covering me in the UFC one day. And damn it if you didn't. So I've been a big fan of Anthony Smith forever. So great interview, a little bit of Triller talk. So we'll get back to that whole situation we were leading to earlier. Here's Anthony Smith.
How's things, man? How are you feeling ahead of this one?
I'm good, man. I feel really good. I had a good camp. Not too banged up. You know what I mean? No injuries. Put a little size on, so I'm feeling good.
We had your opponent out here earlier, and obviously there's been some words back and forth, but he did want to clarify that he actually does respect you, and he actually wanted to take a moment to appreciate that you would take a fight against the guy behind you, where he says he wouldn't necessarily do the same if he was in your position. So I thought I should let you know that.
Yeah, cool.
Do you still think he's a nerd?
I like nerds. I'm kind of a nerd. So, I said it all kind of in joking. Yeah. I can call him a nerd for quoting a movie, but I knew exactly where it came from. You know what I mean? So who's the bigger nerd? So I don't want to offend all the nerds out there. I'm kind of nerdy myself. So, I just thought it was weird. You know what I mean? I don't know. I get it though. It was weird, but I understand it. We haven't had any interactions. And honestly, I've been nothing but respectful to his coach. I don't know him well enough to be super respectful or disrespectful, But I'm a big fan of his team. I think his coach does a really good job. We got a lot of MMA coaches out here, and there's not that many elite ones. You can count them on one or two hands. So, at least in my opinion, as far as if we're talking elite. And I think Safe's one of those guys. I've broken down a lot of his fighters, just working as an analyst at the desk. So I had a lot to say about his coach because I see the body of work that he's kind of put forth into the UFC. So that's why I thought it was weird. I went out of my way to say nice things when I didn't have to. And then, for him to just be weird, it doesn't matter to me. Lit a little bit of a fire. It's kind of fun. But it is what it is. It doesn't matter whether he can sit up here and say he respects me, but I don't think he's going to have a choice on Saturday.
Nice. I think out of all the fighters we ever talked to, you're one of the guys who is most media savvy, as in you see things that the media does and you see the game and the way it all plays. So do you think maybe this can be one of those cases where the UFC promotional machine just takes something and it all gets twisted and we kind of write headlines about it and twist it and it ends up being something that actually it's nothing to either of you at all?
No, I think that it's not very often that I'm outspoken like that, you know, and I wouldn't even say that's out. I mean, that's about as edgy as I get when it comes to opponents, you know what I mean? Unless we're talking about Luke Rockhold or something, but
Or John.
you know, and honestly, I've been pretty respectful to John. Like, I haven't really talked badly I've never talked about his personal hiccups. I've never attacked him personally. I've never, you know what I mean? Like, I've talked about some of the things he's done, you know, in the octagon or at least surrounding the MMA space, but that's my job, you know? So like when people get mad that I'm talking about fighters, I'm literally paid to do that. So I think it was just odd for me to like probably, you know, come out and flip him some shit. You know what I mean? I thought it was fairly lighthearted. You know, I don't think it was I didn't really come at him too hard.
I mean, nerd is not that bad, really.
No. And I said it laughing the whole time. It's not like I was attacking all nerds out there. Like I said, I'm pretty nerdy myself. So, I just don't think it's often that I kind of come at someone back a little bit.
When you look at the fight itself, in terms of your attributes, his attributes, with your analyst hat on, how do you see it playing out? Where do you have your strengths? Where does he have his strengths? How do they compare?
You know, I guess I've been careful to not pull the curtain too far back, but I don't think there's too many secrets here. I've said it over and over and over again. He's a fantastic athlete. He's got big power in both hands. He can shut anybody off if he lands. I don't think he carries that power late into a fight. I don't think that's me, you know, pulling the curtain back. I think that's fairly, you know, that's out there. He's a big dude. He moves well. He's got some really tricky stuff on the ground. He's got some tricky, like, submissions. It's a lot of transitional stuff. So I got to be careful where I put my neck. I got to be mindful of his hands around my neck. I got to make sure I put my hands in the right spot. And I just think, you know, no disrespect, if he can't knock me out, he can't beat me. That doesn't mean he's not dangerous. It doesn't mean he's not tough. I think he's one of the more dangerous guys that I've fought recently. I thought Jimmy Crute was pretty powerful, but I think Ryan Spann's, as far as, you know, stopping ability, I think that, you know, Jimmy Crute can hurt you and finish you. I think Ryan Spann can completely shut you off.
Taking these fights against these guys like Jimmy and Ryan, it's not something that we often see. We see guys who just want to stay at their level and only go higher. Do you take a sense of pride in that? Like, I'll fight anybody and I'll fight these young guys and prove that I'm still above them and prove there's still levels to go. Do you take pride in that? Yeah,
because I've been saying that for a long time. Anyone, anytime, anywhere. I've been saying that for years. And I think a lot of guys say that, but I actually live that life, you know, and if it wasn't for guys like Shogun or Rashad that gave me an opportunity, but maybe they didn't necessarily need to or have to, maybe Rashad a little less just because of where he was at in his career at the time. I think it was, if he wanted to fight, I think he just kind of had to fight whoever. But Shogun didn't have to fight me. You know, when his opponent fell out and they brought me in on like 8 days notice or whatever it was, he could have just said no. Like, he didn't need the money. You know, he was on a 3-fight winning streak. They were talking about him getting a title shot next. He could have waited and got a better matchup on more time or whatever. So I always appreciated that, and I still do about Shogun. Now, I'm not saying I want to be the guy that people make their careers off of, but I think later on down the road, I hope that people remember these moments where, like, I'm taking fights that I don't have to take. I could just sit and wait for a guy ahead of me to, you know, I could have waited for the title fight and fought the loser. But that's just not who I am. I like to stay active, and I just take the fights that are offered.
In a weird way, it's like essential for the ecosystem of MMA, right? You need guys to just take the fight.
Yeah, it's a circle of life, you know. Like, I've been Ryan Spann wanting that opportunity, and I wanted it for a long time, and I never got it. And I, you know, if I say something, I truly mean that, and that's the fight they came with, and that's the fight I took. I also think that I don't want to say I owed it to the UFC, but I think that I've never asked for something and not gotten it, and I think that's because I make sure that I've done the work and I've done the things that I needed to do to earn whatever I'm asking for. So I don't ask for a lot. So this is one of those moments, I think, you know, I slipped on a banana peel a couple times, so I had to put my head down, shut my mouth. I didn't call anybody out. I didn't ask for any fights. I just put my head down and I defended my position. And, you know, after 3 straight wins, I think that I'm in a position to ask for something.
Chael signing off and bemoans the fact that the modern fighter isn't the anyone, anytime, anywhere sort of guy. Do you think that's something that the sport has lost as it's grown?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think I'm the last of a dying breed. I've always said that I think that I was the youngest guy in the generation that's actually ahead of me. So like I came up with, you know, at least in my area where I grew up at, like in Omaha, like the Ryan Jensens, the Jake and Joe Ellenbergers, the Houston Alexanders, Jason Brills, like you've never heard any one of those guys shying away from a fight. I think I'm the youngest guy in Chael's generation. So it's just not how the game is. It's not how guys approach fights. It's not how management manages careers. But that's, again, like I sleep good at night. You know what I mean? Like my life is going well. And although you don't always win them all, but I think that as things kind of go around in a circle, I think it always comes back to me winning.
A couple of things outside this fight, because I enjoy getting your opinions on stuff. For better or worse, recently you seem to have become the advocate for guys should never have the towel thrown in and all that sort of stuff, and they should fight regardless. When you see something...
Oh, no. It's not that I don't...
Personally for you, at least.
Personally for me, I think the fight should be stopped more often. I think coaches should step in when... speaking of, bringing Chael up, Chael said that the towel shouldn't be thrown in when your fighter can't continue. That he thinks it should be thrown in when your fighter can't win anymore. I think that's a little bit extreme. I just think it should be the fighter's choice, and that comes down to being for me personally.
So what I want to expand on from that is there a point where the fighter can no longer be trusted to make that choice? I'm thinking of Evander Holyfield and situations like that, where they get to a point where it's like everyone around them sees them working out. Everyone around them sees this is not likely to go well. At what point can it no longer be their choice?
Well, I think we're talking about extremes for sure. I think there's a lot of gray area in the middle, and I think that's where things get a little dicey. I don't personally think Evander Holyfield should have been in there fighting. I think Evander knows that. You know what I mean? And I think it comes down to paychecks, and I think that fighters, when it gets to the end of their career, I think the end of the career guys and then the towel throwing in situations are totally separate. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to stop on my own. I just don't. Because I've always said, like, I think I'll retire when I don't think that I can compete at the highest level anymore. But like, fighters are pretty delusional. I don't know if I'll ever actually believe that. You know what I mean? I feel like I could be Evander Holyfield's age and be like, man, if I could just land that big shot, I could.
Yeah, I think he feels that way too.
I do think there's a moment where people need to step in for sure, 100%.
Do you think there's something to be said? And again, I'm asking your opinion on it, and this is just an opinion, but when you're someone like Vitor and you get in there and you see Evander throw the first jab, you must know, like, oh, he is 58. Mm-hmm. Is there a part of you that thinks maybe that guy, as a legend, should kind of help him get through the fight? Or do you think Vitor did the right thing, did his job, got him out of there?
I think it depends on the fighter. I'm not sure. I think I think I probably would have just helped him along and let's just get out of here whole, without putting yourself in any danger. I mean, you're going to have to land shots. That's just part of it. But I'm not sure that I could have gone in there and just, lit up Evander Holyfield like that after seeing him move like that. But I think we all know Vitor is a different beast. You know what I mean? So I do think that there's those situations that do happen where, I think there's, I don't know, like a mercy rule kind of, like Vitor had to have known that like this wasn't going to go well for Evander Holyfield. So,
and if he didn't, he would have realized fairly quickly.
Very quickly he would have realized. So I think it depends on the fighter. I think there's a lot of guys like Vitor out there, but I do think there's a lot of guys like me that would have just, let's just get this shit over with, and get my paycheck and get out of here.
Last thing for me, and I only asked you this because of previous comments you made. Last night, Dana White was here, very heavily advocating for Jake Paul to fight Anderson Silva. Would you be interested in watching that fight? For sure. That's the fight that I think needs to happen. I just want Jake Paul to fight someone good. If he fights Anderson Silva, I'll shut up, and I'll stop being so critical. If he fights him and he even looks looks okay doing it, I'll shut up and give him his props. Like, I've never hated on Jake Paul fighting. I think that everyone deserves the opportunity to fight. I advocated for CM Punk. I think they should all do it at a high level because, what are we going to put, like, CM Punk and Jake Paul? And, like, I love the LFA, love it, but, like, is that where we're going to put CM Punk? Like, they can't even handle that type of celebrity, right? So I think Jake Paul should be allowed to fight. I think that he's taking it very seriously. I think that he trains hard. I think that he respects the art and the game. I just don't think he's very good.
So
What did you think of the Woodley fight and his performance in that?
I thought he looked awful. And I love Tyron. I don't want to be critical of him. He's a fellow fighter. He's also a coworker at the desk, but he's stuck in neutral all the time, and it's so frustrating. It's just like, if we're gonna lose anyways, just go berserk and just throw bombs. But so that part's frustrating. But like the mistakes that Jake Paul makes are very amateur mistakes. He has natural power in his hands. That's very clear. He's an athlete. That's very clear. But like, if I threw a jab and my back foot came off the ground, Mark Montoya would tear my fucking head off. It just wouldn't be allowed, and he's supposed to make those mistakes at this point in his career. He's way better than he should be for the amount of time he's been fighting. I'll give him that. So I don't think he sucks. I just don't think he's very good, if that makes any sense. So if he was to fight Anderson and do well, I would stop criticizing him so much. As far as his abilities, I've never criticized the media thing. I think he's doing a fantastic job bringing the pay scale up and helping other fighters and all that stuff. I have no criticism there. It's just his actual abilities that I've ever criticized.
Do you think it's likely he would do well against Anderson?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Me neither. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, I love his interviews. He's always so straightforward, honest, accurate in his assessments. I mean, he's not saying things that are crazy. I just think he's always smart. I mean, that's obviously why he's had such a successful analytical career that's jumping in here now as well. He just does a great job at it. Like I said, just spot on. I think you guys does a fantastic job. I thought, well, first of all, let me just say thank you, Hot T, essentially, for the one-on-one. I should probably list Oscar as a co-host this episode, because that was like a 14-minute one-on-one that we used there. So thank you for that footage, sir. But hey, that's the media day, right? The content we create for everybody. I know he won't be upset that it was on the podcast. We're not stealing his exclusive interview from the Mac Life. That's what we do with these media days, right? But I just want to acknowledge it at least. Thank you, Hot T. But I thought great discussion on the whether you should throw in the towel talk or not. Like it or not, he's kind of become a poster boy for that discussion. So I thought that was interesting to hear his take on it. It's always such an interesting debate topic, right? Whether or not more fights should be stopped in MMA. I mean, we see it in boxing quite common. So the Vitor talk, that's what I was alluding to earlier. See, I like what he's saying there. He's talking about professionalism and, not, understanding that you're in a superior position and not needing to. I don't think he's so worried about insulting a legend, but just understanding that, like, dude, this dude has nothing for me. So what? But you know what, man? I think you got to be careful. And I know it's a boxing glove and not an MMA glove. I like what Anthony was saying there, but man, I feel like I've seen fights in the past, and again, not fights with a 58-year-old guy, but I've seen fights in the past where you felt like somebody had the ability to finish the fight and they just didn't, and it ends up costing them because they get clipped by something silly, or obviously the boxing match, not a mixed martial arts match, so it's not like you could actually slip into a submission or something like that. But I think there's a danger of kind of playing with your food, as we've say sometimes, and then letting yourself get into a bad position and get caught by something when you should have won the fight. So I see where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily agree with that. By the way, insulting my man CM Punk. What's happening with you? I was throwing some shade at my man CM Punk. I see you, Anthony Smith. But I will say, I'm not going to lie, Jake Paul, Anderson Silva, I know this Jake Paul fiasco is crazy. But that's honestly, I mean, he laid it out there. He laid out the assessments perfectly. It's a matchup I'd like to see. So, yeah, good stuff there with Anthony Smith. I'm still sticking with my staff pick of Anthony Smith, but I'm less confident in it than I was when I turned it in. So we'll see how it all plays out on Fight Night. 15 fight card. Of course, we will be doing an and a half episode for all you supporters over there. That will be recorded from Dallas, Texas. I was thinking like maybe get my mom on there, but like I don't know if I could do it. Like, no offense to my mom, like it might be fun to have like a segment or two, or just get a little bit of post-fight feedback, because I know we'll be watching the fight together. I don't know if we should do the whole show together. I don't know. I'm not sure if I could do that. I know it might be fun. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what we do there. She might not want to do it anyway, but we'll see. But 15 fights. So, look, Devin Clark, Ian Cutelaba, that's an interesting matchup there. Nicholas Mota got a late replacement, Cameron Van Camp. Obviously, I'm anxious to see him. Mota came in from CFFC as well, and then through the Contender Series, so I'm excited for that. Manny Baum versus Ariane Lipsky. I can tell you, based on some chatter I saw in the Junkie Slack channel, that Cold Coffee is quite intrigued by the Ariane Lipsky matchup. Take that as you will, but I believe he likes to refer to that. Well, in fact, it's just a fight he's interested in. I don't want to steal his line because then it gets attributed to me, and I don't want that attribution. But I can tell you that Cold Coffee is quite interested in that. I myself am a little bit more interested in Armin Sarukin versus Christos Giagos. I think Armin's the real deal, man. So I'm anxious to see him compete. Antonio Hoyo versus Joaquin Buckley rounds out the main card. That could be absolute fireworks. Of course, we know what Buckley is capable of. And then that's your 6-fight main card. 9 fights on the prelims. There's going to be a lot of fights. Luckily, it's on ESPN Plus, so hopefully they'll crank through them. I think they've got a 9-fight prelim scheduled in a 3-hour window. So, a lot of times they spaced out where they've got it paced at 2 fights an hour. They've got it set for 3 fights an hour. So we'll see what plays out of that. But we'll have it all wrapped up afterwards. Of course, even though I'm off this weekend, MMA Junkie will have you covered for all of it. We'll also have you covered for Bellator. It will be going on simultaneously. So this is not, a Friday night, Saturday night type deal. They're both on Saturday, which, look, they can't plan around each other. That's just going to happen from time to time. I hate when it does because it's just impossible to really watch both of them at the same time. You got to watch one of them on delay, or if you're going to really soak it in. So I'll probably watch a replay of Bellator, and that's not an evaluation of which card I think is better or anything like that. It's just, to be honest with you, I think since I'll be with my mom watching fights, she doesn't know as many of the Bellator fighters, so I think it'll be less interesting for her. She knows the UFC fighters because that's what I'm covering every week, so that's what she ends up watching. But certainly Bellator 266 will have full coverage of that as well. Like I said, Nolan King, I wish I could add him on to preview it. We'll do more previews with him in the future, but it's the media day going on right now. But the headliner's the big one there too. In the same way that I think the UFC is a lot about the headliner, so is the Bellator event. No question about it. There's some other great fights in there as well, but the big one is Phil Davis versus Ul Romero. The Bellator debut, the long-awaited and delayed debut of Ul Romero at 44 years old. What does he still have left at the tank? Doesn't even that physical specimen of a human being eventually get old at some point, right? It's just going to have to happen. Even a freak athlete like him, it's going to have to happen. And when will it happen? And it's hard to look good against Phil Davis, man. It's hard to look good against Phil Davis. And this is what, to be honest, sucks about this matchup. Is it's incredibly intriguing. It's incredibly relevant because if Ul Romero beats Phil Davis, we debated this past week on Spinning Back Click whether or not Ul Romero would be a champion, And look, you beat Phil Davis. I'm not saying you get a title shot right away, but you're pretty much right there. You already brought in name value, and now you're beating Phil Davis. You're pretty much right there. But so that's the intriguing part. What sucks is just to be honest, right? With these two guys' style, it could be a very boring fight. I'm going to knock on wood again in the same way that I'm knocking on wood that CM Punk is going to be calling fights with me tonight and that his plane is not delayed. I'm going to knock on wood right now that this fight isn't boring. But with these two guys' style, there's a chance this could be a bit of a stinker. So I'm not trying to curse him. I'm not trying to be bad. I don't want to do that to him. But I'm worried about this one a little bit. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's a big one. I'll certainly be intrigued. I'll definitely have that one on in the background, trying to find, trying to find a way to watch both simultaneously. I think they pretty much, unfortunately, line up directly with each other. But actually, you know what? I take that back. The UFC starts early, so yeah, okay, I can watch the main card after. Okay, that's good. I thought they were lined up exactly, but they're not. No, I can watch the Bellator main card after. The Bellator prelims I'll have to watch on replay, but the main card I can catch live, unless I'm doing the and-a-half show. Jeez, do I put off the and-a-half show to watch Bellator 2 and then maybe recap it all? Maybe I could do that. Maybe a dual one. Then I really can't do it with my mom. We got a lot to figure out. But see, that's what I can't think about right now. I got to push that off. I got to be in the moment because it's just about time for CFFC 100. I did a couple other things. By the way, the Bellator, one little interesting note, Christian Edwards looks like the real deal, but he's fighting Ben Parrish, who was a referee at CFFC 99. If you were watching the CFFC 99 broadcast, I did criticize him for one decision, and then I did praise him for one right afterwards. So he had a little bit of an up and down night to start with. But he's actually fighting on the card against Christian Edwards in a fight that's been scheduled, I think, 3 different times now. So I guess Ben really likes this matchup with Christian Edwards. So maybe he knows something we don't know, because Christian looks like the real deal to me. So I will definitely be intrigued by that matchup as well. You know, I always enjoy when I've commentated somebody's fight and I see them take a step up to the next level. I guess this is kind of the same. I mean, it doesn't happen very often where it's a referee stepping up to the next level, but that's what's happening. I mean, look, Justin Bernard's getting his chance as a ring announcer. Referee Ben Parrish is getting his chance here fighting on a Bellator main card. I mean, we're just seeing people moving up right and left. How can you not feel good about that? Couple things I did want to mention. Joseph Benevide is retiring, man. Dude, I hate seeing that guy step away. I kind of knew it might be coming. I think he had not lost his passion for it, but yeah, I mean, I think he's done financially well for himself. You know, he's not a guy that wastes money. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I imagine he saved a lot of his money just knowing the type of person that he is. He doesn't drink, so he doesn't go party and stuff like that. And he's not like flashy cars. I bet he spent a decent amount of money on clothes. He does like fashion, but even the clothes he buys, it's not like he's out there buying the most expensive Gucci thing or whatever. It's just he likes to have style, right? Dapper Scrappers, that's his thing, right? He likes style. So I'm happy for him, man. When you see the amount of love that people pour out for him, there's a reason for that, man. That dude, if it doesn't come across in his interviews, that dude is just a good dude behind the scenes. Again, somebody that's honest, that's forthcoming, that you can have great conversations with about things completely outside of fighting. That really when you hear people really appreciate, thank you for doing an interview or whatever, and they really, I don't know, it's just he's a good dude, man. And so one of the best to ever not win a title, right? I mean, that's a sucky kind of backhanded compliment to have, but it's a hell of a compliment when you think about it, man. When you're basically saying, look, you're as good as these champions. We think you are as good as we think you should have won a title at some point, and so that's why I wanted you the best ever to not win a UFC title. I know that burns, I know that sucks, but it is a hell of a compliment because it means we're comparing you to UFC champions. And man, that dude's just always been a good dude. Used to come into MMA Junkie Radio a lot back. Man, they haven't done studio show in forever. It's crazy. COVID again, damn it, COVID again. But man, he'd come in, and I mean, from the very early beginning of his career, WC days, man. It's part of an era. You know what I mean? Covering the WC was fun, man. It really was. And so, yeah, hate to see him go. He's a good dude, man. And I know he probably gets some criticism, for the number of title opportunities got or whatever, but he deserved them, man. He deserved them. And I wish he would have gotten the Michael Bisping treatment, that late in your life where you get to still have that one, it means something, and it just wasn't to be for him. But obviously life has worked out pretty good for him, you know what I mean? Like I say, he's put some money in the bank. I know he's, madly in love with his wife, Megan Levy, and they seem like just an awesome couple that's like full of positivity and support for each other. And man, it's happy to hear. It's you hate. I think, like I said, I think he had kind of lost that passion for the sport, the love for it. I mean, I think the love of training and being with his buddies and all that stuff, he still had that, but I think he had lost some love for the spotlight and the interviews and the hyping process and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So good time for him to walk away and wish him nothing but the best moving forward. I do remember one thing difference is he always said he was missing some results, like from his early career, that he actually had even more of a winning record than he thought, and or than we thought, than we had seen, because some of his early results hadn't been recorded. So his record might even be better. So hate to see him go away, but happy for him. Speaking of the flyweight division, Brandon Moreno, Davison Figueiredo trilogy. I'm curious what people think about that. I'm anxious to hear what people's feedback is about that, because I don't know. It's a trilogy that probably needs to happen. I mean, with everything that was said. But, I mean, Brandon Moreno had basically said, I'm just not interested in this fight again. I want to prepare for somebody else. And then because I think Davison is dangerous as hell, man. I think he matters. But what do you do if he loses and Brandon Moreno stays champ? Now you got this dude that's got, that's one of the best ever in the division right now and can't fight for a title again. So what do you do? I don't know. I just feel like this trilogy happening so fast means one of them is going to be kind of screwed moving forward as long as the other is champion. You know what I mean? And so I think maybe that's one reason I don't love it right away. I mean, stylistically, it was a great fight, you know, and it should be. It's always going to be a great fight, no matter how many times they fight. So I'm cool with that. But I just feel like the loser of this fight is going to be in a pretty shitty position moving forward. And then, of course, there's Pantoja, who has a real history there as well, and had the respectful call out and all those things. And so I guess maybe there's something going on with Pantoja that we're not aware of. And I should probably reserve judgment until I check in on that. You know, was it a situation where they came to Pantoja and he's like, dude, I'm hurt right now, I just can't, and they need a title fight for December, and that was the right time for Moreno, and so then they were left going to three. Because if that's the case, then you know what? At that point, I wash my hands. We got to go with the trilogy. If Pantoja wasn't able to take this fight, and again, I apologize if again I've been prepping for CFFC 100 today, so I apologize if that news has gotten out there and I haven't seen it yet. But I haven't seen it yet. But if they came to Pantoja and he turned it down for whatever reason, and I'm not saying turn it down, I just mean like wasn't able, and then they went to this, then no complaints, can't say anything at that point. But if they didn't go to Pantoja and that wasn't the consideration, then I don't know why you go to this trilogy right away, because, again, I think somebody's going to be in a bad spot coming out of it. So we'll see how it all plays out, though. Hell of a fight, though. Hell of a fight. I mean, both those are great fighters. And then I guess if you're Pantoja, if you did get passed over, you just sit and wait, because I think certainly you should be right there. So anyway, listen, it's going to be a busy week. I'm going to focus on the here and now, the way Ryan Spann said. It's going to be a busy week. Next week, we'll have that all covered. Of course, we'll do the and a half this weekend if you want to join us over there. Contender Series next week, by the way. Even though I'm staying in the moment, Santo Cortola is going to be on that one, so the CFFC will continue. Anybody that's watched CFFC and followed Santo's run, I mean, listen, you get on the Contender Series, anything can happen, but this dude is talented, man. So I'm extremely excited to see that. We have a package on the broadcast. I think we've got 7 or 8 guys from the CFFC on Contender Series this year, which is pretty damn cool. The Conor thing, I don't want to talk about the Conor thing a whole lot. That was silly, right? I think we're all moved past it at this point. It's just silly. I don't like to see it. Conor McGregor throwing drinks at a rapper on the MTV red carpet, like, and I know main culture eats it up and TMZ loves it and all that, man. Like, I mean, what's the point? What's the point? Are you gonna fight MGK? You're gonna fight Machine Gun Kelly? What is that? I don't even go into it. It's a professional fighter and a rapper, bro. Like, you don't need to address him in that manner. We all know you would kick his ass. You're a trained killer. He would out-rap you. I bet he can play the guitar better than you. I mean, what are we doing? Why are you throwing a drink at MGK? Maddening. So yeah, I'm not gonna cover that. Stephan Bonnar. Man, if you're in Stephan Bonner's life, please help him get some help. We've seen some incidents in Vegas over the past couple of years that would suggest that there's some bad things, going on with Stephan in his life right now. And I've seen a lot of people, kind of chime in and say, hey, this looks bad. If you're close to Stephan, get him some help, man. He's a legend. And obviously that video that was posted is disturbing, especially when you consider the fact that he posted it himself. So that means that not only did he have an unfortunate meltdown, but even afterwards, he felt he was the guy that was being wronged so much that he posted it. So, hopefully, get him some help. Listen, I gotta go. I gotta change. I gotta get dressed. I gotta put a suit on. The only time in my life I put a suit on is when I get on the CFFC mic. Obviously, didn't spend a lot of time talking about the card itself because I'm sure by the time most of you listen to this, it will already be over. But if you haven't, if you haven't checked out CFFC before, maybe now's the time. Maybe just the suspense alone of finding out whether or not CM Punk made it to Florida or not is enough for you to tune in. Check it out. I love working with this company. I love calling fights, man. It really is something that I enjoy doing. Hopefully that joy comes across in the broadcast. I want to keep doing more of it, man. It sounds like we're gonna. I was talking to the guys at CFFC. It sounds like we're gonna have a pretty busy schedule in 2022, and I'm excited about that. I mean, as much as I love my job as a reporter covering UFC events, and I do, man, I still have as much passion for it as I did when I started. I love calling fights, man. I love calling. There's nothing better than having the best seat in the house, You know what I mean? And to just sit there and talk with my man CM Punk about the fights and knowing that, everybody at home is watching and hopefully enjoying too, and hopefully they feel like I'm doing respect to the athletes in there and to the sport itself. That makes me feel good, man. I love it. So, check out CFFC 100 if you haven't before, or if you have, we do appreciate it. And, over at patreon.com/MMA Roadshow. We'll see you this weekend. It'll be a good fight. MMA Junkies got both those events covered, UFC and Bellator. So a busy weekend, obviously, wall to wall. The MMA Junkie staff will have you covered. We'll talk about it too. If not, we'll see everybody next week. And as always, mean it. Thanks for listening.